At BlizzCon on November 3rd, 2023, Blizzard announced a new version of their biggest IP, World of Warcraft, known as Season of Discovery. This version of the game was designed as a new and refreshing version of Classic WoW, with more content as a sort of revamped Classic Plus that so many players had been asking for years. In the time that Season of Discovery has been out, it has gone under many updates with dozens of new abilities to obtain, places to explore, and enemies to defeat. The biggest thing that Blizzard has done though was the introduction of new instance content to explore, with bosses to defeat and gear to obtain, with this being the first real look at what a potential Classic Plus could look like. First, there was the dungeon Demonfall Canyon, which had a mixed reception, but then the new Caverns and Crypts dungeon added in the recent Phase 7 patch gave players exactly what they were looking for, with the dungeon being both fun and well designed, whilst filling in the gaps Classic WoW has had in its world for so long. After the success of the Caverns and Crypts, Blizzard has gone even farther and now have introduced the new Scarlet Enclave raid, an entirely new 40-man raid with the Phase 8 patch centered around it. Blizzard adding such a large expansion to the Season of Discovery realms that has never been seen before now sets a precedent that they might be willing to go even farther in the future, and that is what this video is about today. I'm here to discuss some possibilities of what lies in the future of Season of Discovery updates as it expands further and further to give content that classic players have wanted to see for so long. So much of the original Azeroth was untouched in the original development of the game, so there are multitudes of possibilities for what's to come. I will try to mostly avoid discussing things that were added to the game in later expansions that were fully fleshed out and have little room to work with, since Blizzard will likely want to keep most of the game's continuity intact and use these new opportunities to expand on things never fully explained and seen through in the game. First, I want to highlight some of the obvious and well-known parts of Azeroth that players have wanted to get in Classic for quite some time. One of these is obviously Hyjal, the giant mountain located in the north of Kalimdor and home to the World Tree of Nordrassil. In the World of Warcraft Cataclysm expansion, players visit Mount Hyjal after the Shattering occurred and Deathwing rose from his lair to wreak havoc on the world. In this expansion, Deathwing allied himself with the Elemental Lords to bring about the Hour of Twilight, and with that Ragnaros the Fire Lord took his assault to Hyjal in an attempt to burn down the World Tree. While we know everything that happened after Deathwing woke up, we know nothing about Hyjal from the period between then and the events of Warcraft 3, so what exactly was happening in Hyjal during Vanilla would be awesome to explore. We do know that in the alpha and early development stages of WoW, Hyjal was intended to be a zone, which is evident by the decent amount of detail that can still be found if you make your way up the mountain, as well as the giant skeleton of Archimonde leaning on the World Tree. The original vision for Hyjal was that of a super high level raid zone full of dragons and demons, but unfortunately it was scrapped. Now, with the Season of Discovery, Blizzard has a chance to use their much larger amount of resources to realize their initial vision. Having a high-level zone with lots of elite open-world content, similar to Silithus during the AQ patch, with it leading up to a big raid full of demons with something like an appearance from Kil'jaeden, would be super cool to see. Another zone added in Cataclysm that we know nothing of during Vanilla WoW is Gilneas, a land formerly part of the Kingdom of Lordaeron, located just south of Silverpine Forest that is plagued by the Worgen curse. If they were to add something related to Gilneas, odds are that I think they wouldn't add the entire zone, because they are supposed to be isolated by choice in the lore, but I do think they could add something like an instance that takes place outside the main city of Gilneas just past the wall. The dungeon would probably have something to do with the Scythe of Elune, an artifact that is the origin of the Worgen curse, which is discussed briefly in a questline in Duskwood, but kind of goes nowhere and lacks a full explanation of what happened to the Scythe. We do know that it somehow gets delivered to the Gilneans after it is retrieved shortly after the questline in Duskwood, so potentially a dungeon in Gilneas could involve something like escorting a druid of the Cenarian Circle past the wall into Gilneas as they are trying to deliver the Scythe. The dungeon could involve killing various Worgen and maybe a dark wizard or evil druid or something that is trying to steal the Scythe back. There could even be unique thematic rewards, like a new cosmetic wolf form for druids. I think this would be something pretty interesting that could answer some questions that we've had about Vanilla WoW and the Worgen for a long time, as well as filling in the story gaps which Blizzard would likely be incentivized to do. Similar to the Scythe of Elune questline, there's an unfinished questline that is centered around one of the game's most important and popular characters, This questline is of course the missing diplomat, that is centered around finding out what happened to Varian Wrynn, King of Stormwind, since he is missing during the events of Vanilla WoW. What we know is that Varian was captured on his way to Theramore by the Defias Brotherhood in their plot to overthrow Stormwind, and he was taken to Alkaz Island, where his soul was split in two with the help of Katrana Prestor, otherwise known as Onyxia. Up until patch 1.10, you could actually find Varian imprisoned underneath Alkaz Island, and I think it would be pretty cool if they brought him back and finished the missing diplomat questline that could involve a new dungeon which expands upon the Alkaz Island prison and makes it to where you have to break in and defeat various Nagas, Defias, or leftover minions of Onyxia to get him out of the prison. I think this could make for some pretty fun side content they could add to Season of Discovery that could flesh out one of the biggest mysteries in Vanilla WoW. Another thing that has a lot of untapped potential that was utilized in later expansions is the Caverns of Time. When this place was introduced in the Burning Crusade, it served as an instance hub for dungeons that involved reliving important past events in WoW's timeline, and making sure they were carried out as the Bronze Dragons intended. They continue to introduce more of these dungeons in Wrath of the Lich King and Cataclysm, but despite the 8 instances in here, it is still rather untouched as far as WoW lore goes. It'd be really cool if they opened the Caverns of Time for Season of Discovery, since this would create opportunities to make new raids or dungeons of so many iconic events that were portrayed in Warcraft 1, 2, and 3, or are noted in the Chronicle books. Things like the liberation of Grim Batol from the Dragon Maw Orcs, or the Karaji Troll Wars would be very cool to see and would offer Blizzard a lot of room to create new and interesting raids with topics less explored and less restricted than others. Lastly for this video that I think would be a great addition to Season of Discovery is the island of Tel'Abim, which can be seen in several maps of Azeroth from different sources. We pretty much know nothing about this place other than the fact that they grow bananas there, and those bananas have made it all over Azeroth and are found in-game. Since we pretty much know nothing about this island, that gives Blizzard all the room in the world to work with to make something brand new and exciting for players. Imagine if they made it something like a giant pirate island that is run by the Bloodsail Buccaneers, and in a raid, players had to travel there to take down a massive fleet that is planning to siege Booty Bay. I think this would make for something pretty refreshing that players would look forward to seeing and is completely plausible for them to add. Of course, this island could have literally anything on it, since we know nothing about it besides the bananas. It could even be an island that is just filled with a bunch of giant monkeys, and even that would be funny and interesting. Blizzard has so much to work with here, and it would be a waste for them not to take advantage of this in Season of Discovery. And that wraps up some of my ideas of where Blizzard could take us in the oncoming phases of Season of Discovery. And who knows, maybe they already have a bunch of this stuff planned, or they're taking us to the Burning Crusade in a phase or two. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like and subscribe to see more videos like this one, and it helps me out a ton. If you have any ideas, please let me know in the comments below. With that being said, I'm out.